Do you ever nap in these chairs?
I feel like I don't take advantage of these chairs
These are
nearly as much as I should.
You smoke weed?
Yeah, but not in here.
It's a good room to smoke weed in.
If I did it here, the whole house would smell like weed, and then I wouldn't live in the house
These
anymore.
are just, can you imagine though? This is a great chair. Anyway, this is a stoner. I'm getting too excited about it.
No, that's okay. Yeah, as long as you're...
Do you care where this is?
No, as long as it's like about a fist away from your face.
Okay. And I'm loud.
I can...
Sometimes the mic at the lab is a little bit shoddy sometimes, and someone was like, "Oh, you're gonna have to project," and I was like, "That's not a problem."
I like the idea of having to project while using a microphone.
I know it's all for show.
Yeah,
I've caught sound guys turning me down.
Oh yeah,
I feel it happening. And I'm as loud as I
I'm
wanna
the
be.
same.
Yeah?
I'm a bellower.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Well, let's just get started.
Yeah.
Mickey Dykeman, welcome to Half Hearted.
Oh my God, thank you for having me.
So when did you get engaged?
Oh shit, Thanksgiving.
Okay.
Thanksgiving.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Who proposed to who?
They proposed to me.
Gotcha.
People assume that I would have proposed because I have shorter hair. That's real. People are always like, "Oh my God, how did you propose?" And I'm like, "No, I was wined and dined. I'm a trophy boy."
Yeah. Okay. There you go. Yeah. See, it all gets mixed up.
Yeah, the gender roles are so. I don't think people realize how built in it is to marriages and weddings and stuff, specifically weddings and all that hoopla until you're gay and you're like, well, I guess we'll just do whatever we want.
Yeah.
Like bachelor parties. Like, how do you know what I mean? Like all these things that are so gendered and we're just like, oh.
Yeah, that's it. Well, yeah, marriage tends to be a fairly gendered operation.
It's a lot. Yeah, it's a lot. And then we're every boomer's nightmare. We're they, them, and
well, I mean, so I wanted to try to ask a question about it that didn't sound like you needed to justify or like you did. I didn't want to.
No, you didn't. I brought it up.
Yeah, you did. But I do have questions about it in terms of like.
Go for it.
Because you're a they them.
I am.
Okay. Did you go with they them? And we'll talk about how you got to being a they them.
Okay.
But is it because you feel like both, or you don't really feel like either?
It's complicated. It's a tricky thing. When I was a child, like I was a boy.
Okay.
And I knew it like in me bones. And I would go. We live in this small town, and I would go around telling people my name was James or Thomas. Those were the two most masculine names I could think of.
Okay.
Small town. My dad's a priest. Everyone knew who I was.
Yeah.
And I would overcompensate. I would be as boy as possible. And then somewhere in puberty, it got a little bit more muddled for me. I think. I mean, I tried very hard to be a woman in high school.
Well, what do you mean by muddled?
Yeah. Just like I think that we assume that it's set, and it's not that people aren't born trans. That's not what I'm saying. I definitely was, but when you're going through puberty, children are shifting. They're not, So in high school, I was bullied a lot.
Yeah. Same.
Yeah, because gay, like that was the.
Well, this is a bit I have is I was goth in the 90s, which.
Yeah, you were.
Which may as well be gay.
Yeah, it is now. Oh my God. There's been this trend, this is off topic already, but of male comedians hitting on goth female audience members. And every time they're gay, and I go up, I'm like, "You're gay, right?" And they're like, "Yeah." And I'm like, "Boys, they're ours. I don't know what to tell you." Anyway.
Yeah, we don't like the idea of being ruled out automatically.
I know.
Give me a shot.
I know. But I'm just like, leave these women alone. Anyway, muddled. So I was bullied a lot. So in high school.
Sorry, I'm gonna lower your volume.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I told you, I'm so loud.
No, that's okay. You're one of the few people that I actually have that issue with.
Opposite.
So
yeah.
Okay, so things got muddled in high school.
So I decided. Like going to Napanee High School when I went there wasn't super duper easy because I stood out like a sore thumb.
Yeah, that's the part of Avril's journey that nobody asks. Like, why would you leave Napanee?
I don't know. Napanee's been gentrified a bit now, but yeah, when I was growing up there, like meth capital of Ontario per capita, we were there because of a Flying J. That's why Napanee existed.
What's a Flying J?
It's a truck stop.
Oh.
We were a trucker
town. It sounded familiar, like a Circle K. Okay,
kind
it's a
of,
truck.
Yeah,
okay.
But yeah, it's like it'll have a gas station and a restaurant and a convenience store.
Gotcha.
And I don't know, probably some kind of outback brothel. I don't know what they're doing.
Gotcha. It's a town that largely like gets its business from people going past it on the 401.
Yeah, exactly. And just enough people to sustain a town.
Yeah.
So it was rough, and I just was tired of being bullied. So I tried to be a woman.
Mm-hmm.
It's amazing the mental gymnastics because I was so sure I was a boy when I was really little, and then I just decided to forget that.
So if you're
I grew my hair out long.
and was that the first time you had ever really done that?
Yeah, my hair had always been a battle. Hair and clothes with was always a big argument. So I always had my hair short as a kid, and I grew it out like below my butt. Like it was long hair in high school.
Yeah.
When I'm like 14, 15. But then didn't really change anything about myself otherwise. So I was like, this is all you need, right? Now go leave me alone.
It was all just surface.
I didn't change the way I dress and I tried to date boys, and I did date boys. I feel bad for them. Like, this is not oh boy. But yeah, anyway, so
what is that like? If you're attracted to women, what is it like dating a guy?
Imagine dating a dude. It's just uncomfortable, and you're not into it.
Yeah, I guess like if I had to go out
not to assume you're where you are on the sexuality spectrum.
No, but that's a good way of putting it. Is like if I was on a date, like a real date with a gay man, where I knew where his head was at in terms of expectations.
He wants to make out with you and fuck you and all.
And you'd be like,
and you're just like, I want this, but I don't.
Let's leave room for the Lord.
Exactly. I bet played that card.
I bet Jesus came real handy.
Oh God, I have a whole bit about it that I was conveniently saving myself for marriage.
That's so funny.
And then the second I got like an actual girlfriend when it came out, like 16. Yeah, that didn't last very long. And I used to be so judgmental of people because again, you don't necessarily. It's like you know what you're doing, but you cover it up with layers of denial.
Well, I would imagine that it's harder when that is largely how the world is.
Yeah, and especially my world.
Yeah.
Right?
Yes,
too.
absolutely.
Like it wasn't a GTA kind of situation. I once watched all of Doctor Who to avoid having sex with my boyfriend. He'd come over and he was a nerd and I'm a nerd, and I would just be like, well, you live in Ottawa and this is the only time we get to watch it together and we're going to watch it. And we watched so much Doctor Who, this poor guy. Yeah. I'm sure he hears the sound of the TARDIS booting up and just punches a wall. Like, he was nice. He was nice.
I just associate Doctor Who with not getting laid.
I know. I think I ruined that show for him, which is fine. I didn't ruin a better show.
So you grew up in Napanee. So here's what I know about. This is what I like to do with guests. I like to recap what I know about the person.
Okay, cool.
And then they start to fill in blanks for me, which is fun. So are they them? You work with Danton at the lab.
I do.
You've got a partner. You're engaged.
I am.
And you're from Napanee, which I just found out now. Yeah. Your dad was a priest.
You just found that out?
No. That I knew.
Oh, okay.
That I knew.
Okay.
And I know that you have adopted brothers.
I do.
So do you have any like not adopted siblings?
Okay. I have an older sister.
So what world were you born?
I'm the gayest of four.
You're the gayest of four. Okay. Yeah. So you were born in Napanee too, and your dad was a priest. So like, so what is? Jeez.
Well, he's retired.
So like,
that's the kind of thing that you're always a priest.
So what thread do we pull here?
There's a lot of threads. Right? I know. It was an eclectic life.
Yeah. So you're it's interesting because we're at opposite ends of the millennial spectrum.
Yeah, you're one of the older ones.
I'm at 82, so I'm a cusp with Gen X.
Okay, and then I'm a cusp with Gen Z. Like some people would say I'm the youngest millennial. Most people would say I'm the oldest Gen Z. Yeah,
because I've heard it debated that Gen Z is 95 or 98.
Exactly.
So
they argue I'm 97.
Yeah.
So people kind of it's not an exact science generation. So there's no like now you're like in this moment everyone born is there's always like kind of muddleness. But I think I'm Gen Z. But I'm the youngest. One of my brothers is younger, but we didn't adopt them as babies.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So for a lot of my life I was the baby.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. What was I even?
Well, we were just talking about the world that you're born into. So your dad's a priest. Now let's talk about that because I think when most people hear priest, they think Catholic. They think Catholic. They think not married. So a priest with a child, that's crazy.
They think it's scandalous.
Yeah, it's scandalous. Yeah, so talk about your dad being a priest and like what denomination that you grew up in.
So he's Anglican, and people would be like, I thought Anglicans were ministers or whatever. Honestly, they're all used interchangeably. Mm-hmm. Like I think Catholics are the only ones who are sticklers for the wording. Most like I've heard people call dad priest, father, minister, whatever, reverend. Mm-hmm. So he's an Anglican minister, whatever you want. And they're allowed to get married.
And the Anglican
they're allowed to bone.
Yeah, they're allowed to do. They were like Catholic
for the betterment of society. They are. That's exactly. I always say there's somewhere in between United and Catholic. Like they're too uptight to be too conservative and uptight to be United, but they're not quite as hardcore as Catholics.
So yeah, they're Anglican is weird. I think especially in Canada because it seems like every church is a little different.
They are all over the spectrum. Yeah. Whereas like Catholic, you kind of know what you're going into. United, you kind of know what you're going into.
Catholic is McDonald's, right?
Catholic is McDonald's.
You're gonna get the same thing everywhere you go.
Like a Burger King.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's the kind of thing too, like on gay marriage, for example, it's always a 50-50 stalemate. Whereas like when they know they're sort of not united on that front.
Yes, the Anglicans.
The Anglican Church was invented because King Henry VIII wanted to get divorced.
Correct. He wanted to stop killing his wives.
He was like, "That's getting old. That's getting boring."
Yeah, he had a church created because he had a slight conscience.
I know.
Right.
I know.
Because he wanted to. I can't remember though if
that the divorce came before or after the beheadings.
No, I think he was killing them, and he
was like,
I could be very wrong here. We'll let people comment.
We'll let people let us know
if I'm wrong about it. But yeah, I thought it was because he was tired of having to kill them.
Oh, right.
But what I was saying was that like you can get Anglican churches that are almost evangelical, like really Protestant, and then you can get ones that are very high church, like Lutheran-y. And,
yes, exactly. They're all over the place.
And they're all over. And you're right. Yeah. Did the Anglican church split over same-sex marriage?
Some people leave.
Yeah.
But the church itself isn't split. They can't agree though. Every time they vote about it or something, it's always sort of like a stalemate.
Or they vote to delay the vote.
Yeah, There's a lot of avoidance. There's a lot of. I feel like Anglicans are sort of passive aggressive. Like they're not. They don't tell you what they think. They just look at you in a way.
So what kind of minister was your dad? Which kind of church were you? Like a high church or like a fun Protestant kind of one?
I say he's like somewhere in the middle.
Okay.
He's a boomer. He grew up in Fredericton and Moncton in the 70s, right? So kind of Bible Belt-esque.
Okay.
His dad's a priest too.
Okay.
It's a family tradition.
Yeah.
But the thing about my dad is that he's not an aggressive person. He is not a confrontational person. He's not like out here looking for people to hate. I think it's something he maybe didn't give that much thought.
Yeah.
Before me. And I think my parents have also gotten more. It's funny. They've always voted politically liberal. Okay. But I think just because of their background, they were always socially more conservative. I don't think they'd let me saying that because it is what it is. Yeah. But I think they've gotten less so. I've really pushed that.
Yeah.
So he's the kind of guy, I don't know what he thinks. He's a quiet. For a guy who's never smoked weed, he seems like he's high a lot. Like he's a little like, so I don't know
eccentric
exactly. He's a goofy guy. Okay. He's beloved. He works really hard. He's tired a lot. He definitely has some depression.
Yeah.
So he's just like not
for people who don't know.
Yeah.
Like the life of the average pastor
is crazy.
It's crazy. Yeah. It's not the like
people
I think
it's just Sundays.
Well, and people think that it's like, oh, it's the pastor gets the tithe money and he misspends it, blah blah blah. That's especially in Canada. That's a very small amount of churches that make that amount of money,
and they're independent. They're not. Yeah.
Yeah. Like
the Anglican Church is going bankrupt.
No, they're going bankrupt. But like as far as your dad, he probably spent every day at getting lunch, like doing lunch with different people in the church, helping out different types of people all the time.
Yeah.
Like using the building to like raise money or do food or like outreach
exactly. and you're in service to your community as a priest, especially, and that's acute in small towns. So people would always be hitting dad up for help. We'd have guys at our house all the time wanting money or something. Again, when I was living there, a lot of poverty, a lot of addiction.
Yeah.
And visiting people in the hospital, like every day was full.
How did that make you see your dad?
I respected him for sure.
Yeah.
And it's interesting. I was like very devout as a child, like super.
Well, that was going to be my next question.
Yeah, super into it. Too. So it's funny. Like kids used to think he was God. They'd get confused.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
That makes me Jesus.
Yeah, I remember there was a story when I was with a youth group and we were doing a sandwich run.
Yeah.
And this is a story that was told to me. They were doing a sandwich run where they were praying for the food before they went out to deliver it to the homeless.
Right.
But then the way that kids pray is that it gradually became that the kids we're praying to the sandwich.
Oh no, kids will worship anything.
Yeah, right. Please be nutritious.
Oh my God, that's amazing. Kids get confused. Yeah, these are high concepts. You know,
it's what it's very
stuff.
true.
Yeah,
I feel like that's why I think that's why adults are more like heavy-handed with things with kids, because most of it doesn't, like, you need to make them feel really guilty or bad, because otherwise they don't really think about it.
So glad you're a parent.
Right? Like,
yeah, no, I know what you mean. You have to, it's funny how moldable children are too. Like, people will be like, the church indoctrinates children. I'm like, I'm not saying that's wrong, but I think children are indoctrinated into whatever their parents' belief systems are. And then they shed that or they don't. Yeah. They either like push back against it or they get super into it themselves, I think.
Yeah.
I don't know.
No, it's true. I mean, either people, well, I mean, those really are the only two alternatives though, too, right? Stay with it or leave.
And I think people can have one foot in, one foot out, but you know.
I'm kind of like that.
Yeah. Do you want to know about my
Sorry, well,
yeah,
I did want to know, that was going to be my next question, is like, you're born into it, but some kids, like, I use this example in one of my earlier podcasts, is that I've got two girls.
Yep.
My one daughter's kind of into it, because we don't push it really hard.
Yeah.
We don't, that's not us. And then my younger one doesn't seem to really care at all.
Right.
And so, like, where did you land?
I was extremely devout, huge believer, big, like, completely bought into it. I now, as an adult, I believe in God. Like, nothing will take that away from me. I just don't translate that through a specific religion.
Gotcha.
People say spiritual, and I'm like, I don't know. Yes, like I am. I believe in God. I just think that God is bigger than religion.
That's what I say that a bit.
And then people will push back on that. I'm like, I'm not saying don't be religious. I'm not taking, like, you know what I mean? Religion can give people a lot of comfort, a lot of purpose, community. There's a lot of good things about. We like ritual. The Bible's got some real nice stuff in it. It's got some real weird shit in it too. But it's
talking animals.
A lot of bushes. Talking bushes. Yeah. You go to talking animals, bushes. That's weed.
I didn't even think about that one. Yeah,
that was weed.
I know.
That was some kind of psychedelic. Anyway, I just. But so now, and that was a very painful thing. Most people. The technical
let's talk
term
about
is,
that. Like, what did you at the beginning? You're into it. You're going on Sunday. Did you have like a version of youth group? I don't know if Anglican. Does that.
They do youth group. They do. It's all this. It's all very similar. No, we small town. We lived like 2 blocks from the church. I was there probably every day, for whatever reason. And my dad ran like Vacation Bible School in the summer, and I was in the choir, and I was in the youth group, and I was there every Sunday, and
So when did you? Was it your sexuality and or gender views change? Was that the catalyst to kind of get you to start to change?
Sort of. I think it certainly accelerated it. I honestly. So the technical term for it is deconstructed Christian.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
You probably know that term. Yes. So it's like going from being a Christian to not being a Christian. And I've heard people say the more you believe and the more invested you are in Christianity or whatever the religion is, it can apply to any religion, the harder it hurts. Like the worse it is. Yeah. It sucks. So I would say I moved to university.
Okay.
I moved to Toronto when I was 19 because I did grade 2 twice. I did every grade the number of times it is, so grade 3. No, that's not true. And I fell into a deep depression. So I came out as gay when I was 16. I didn't come out as trans till I was in my 20s.
Okay.
And actually,
how was coming out as gay and happening?
It was different. It was funny. That was worse than coming out as trans for different reasons. I mean, my parents had just had a long time to kind of grow and adapt. Like, coming out as gay was rough.
How so?
Bullying. And I was bullied really aggressively when I was a kid. Like, I went to so many different elementary schools. We had to start sending me to Kingston. In grade 12, I went to Kingston for high school. Like, I just... so it would be cruelty, but just like, there would be the kinds of things, are you a boy or a girl? Like, there would be clearly targeted stuff. Yeah. But also just general bullying because you're different. Like, it wasn't always, and it got less physical when we hit puberty.
Okay.
But it was physical when I was a child.
Yeah.
Not all the time, but there are a few instances in particular where I'm just like, Jesus Christ.
So even when you were, because you were saying earlier, like even when you were really young, you identified with like boy stuff.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Absolutely. 100%.
So even when you were really young, you were kind of
puberty was hard.
Yeah.
Because that's when they start to segregate children. Things like sports. Oh, I took that hard. None of my friends were girls.
Yeah.
I did not relate to females my age. It was weird. It would have been like putting a boy with them. Like I felt uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And I remember the first time I had to be on a all girls sports team and not with my friends on the boys team. Pretty young too.
Yeah.
And a house league. Like it's kind of bullshit. Anyway, in my opinion.
Yeah. Well, yeah, they separate for that stuff like way younger.
Yeah, younger like again, like recreational. Like no one here. This isn't like a crazy. Anyway, it doesn't matter. But I just was like crying and I lost my shit.
Yeah.
Yeah, the gender stuff. So I moved to Toronto, and it's the first time I am away from everything from my childhood because I grew up in the one place.
Yeah.
With all the same people, the same whatever, and it was the first time I was away, and so the gender stuff was harder to deal with than the gay stuff for me, in a lot of ways. I came out as gay. I was like, I'm being bullied. They already know. I may as well.
Yeah.
Fuck. So I came out as gay. The trans thing was harder. It was a lot harder. There's more. It just was for a lot of different reasons. It was really difficult, and so I'm like 19, 20. I fall into a really deep depression, like really, really bad. And it was like that for most of university.
Okay. What did you study?
Film.
Okay.
And I think a lot of that was like, and again, you're not aware of it necessarily because your brain has done so much to push these things down and to like twist it in your head. So I don't know, I think subconsciously I knew what was going on, but consciously I was just in distress and not sure why. It wasn't this immediate, like, I'm not a Christian. I tried, but it wasn't this conscious decision, but I moved and I just stopped going to church immediately. And I remember being like, that's weird.
I feel like it's what almost always happens.
Yeah, and then
like that was the thing as a youth group leader,
right?
That we would like try to warn kids about
that
like,
you're just going to stop going.
That you're like make sure that you get plugged in as soon as you get there, or even in advance, or else like you'll probably just stop.
And but I remember thinking like that's weird, and that was the start.
Yeah,
and then it was a long multi-year process, and then I had a really hard time with the culture shock of small town to Toronto. Hated Toronto at first.
Like what?
Everything. It was too loud, too busy, I found a very lonely place. I just felt like a fish out of water. And now it's good. But at the time, that was a really difficult adjustment. And then being closeted as trans, that's a very painful experience. And I went through a bad breakup right when I got there, all sorts of things. So like there was a lot of things that happened. And then, being away from these things. Coming out as trans was like a weight lifted.
And what does your life look like? What's different about versus like coming out as gay versus coming out as trans?
I don't know. I think
like I'm just curious as to how those were different.
I think that the gay thing is something society's thought about a lot more. And like that's why we're having a trans panic right now, because people are just paying attention to it. Like trans people are well documented through all of history, but it's newer that it's becoming mainstream. And so there's a very acute phobia. Whereas the gay thing, like people knew what gay was. I don't know. Like I didn't understand what trans was. That's another thing, is not knowing what these feelings are. It
was when I had Joe Arsenal on, he was talking about how important the Ellen moment was for gay people in the 90s. Yeah. So has that moment happened for trans people yet, do you think?
It's happening now. The issue is this crazy...
I venture to say Caitlyn Jenner, but I'm not sure.
I don't know. Caitlyn Jenner kind of sucks, but...
Well, but
I know what you mean.
But at that moment, it was big, right?
It was pretty radical. It was pretty, especially for an athlete.
Yeah, like I think people were holding out that she would maybe get in line with all the other things that come along with being
she hates gay people.
Yeah, exactly.
It's awful, but it's kind of iconic, but it's terrible. Caitlyn Jenner, maybe. I think there's other people though that have kind of popped up, and more just people talking about it. But now people have decided it was okay for a while, and now It's so funny. I can't remember the exact number, but trans people make up, it's like less than 2% or something of the population. It's a crazy thing.
I'd be shocked if it was that high. Like,
I know,
it's not
but
a lot.
people are panicking because the trans people that are there are more visible.
Yes.
And they're talking about it younger, and they're acting like young people are just now thinking they're trans. I'm like, yo, I knew I was trans when I was 2 years old.
Mm-hmm.
Like, they just can articulate it in a way that I couldn't because I didn't even know what that was.
Yes.
I just thought I was a freak and that I suck. You know? Yeah. Like, it's dark. When you don't have, there's something different, but you don't know what it is.
Yeah.
That's really difficult and confusing. And in a time that's already, trans puberty sucks, yo. It sucks.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's like
you have normal puberty stuff and then all this weird stigma on top of it.
Yeah, well, you're going through the puberty of the gender you don't want to be, I would imagine.
Yeah, no, exactly. And there's no support. And there's this thing called second puberty that trans adults go through when they come out and they realize they're trans, because it's just like you kind of have to rethink everything all over again. And then if you go on hormones, that's a whole thing.
Yeah.
But,
do you know anything about that? Like I only know what I see in the news, which I'm more distrustful of every day.
It's fair,
like,
yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So do you have firsthand? Well, not firsthand, but like experience with people
absolutely.
you know who have gone through hormones.
Oh yeah.
It seems like a mixed bag. I've heard people have.
People will say really dramatic things. For the most part, I've never met a trans man that was like overly aggressive.
Mm-hmm.
I've never. That's a big thing. It's not, testosterone is a hell of a drug.
Yeah.
And absolutely, when you're suddenly having more of it, there are certain shifts, but usually it levels out. It's like being teenage boys are a lot more than adult men, ideally. Yeah. In the best cases. But no, it's just, I mean, it's most of the changes are physical. I haven't done hormones too, so I can't speak so much to the but I know what you mean. But it's awkward. Like you go through like traditional puberty symptoms like acne, like irritability, mood swings. Like these things do happen, but then they level out.
Okay.
Basically, like it's puberty. It's second puberty, and so that's why the puberty blockers is so controversial. Mm-hmm. And I understand why. And you got what's happening in
Alberta.
Yeah, and I do understand that. Like that argument. I'm not saying I don't. I will say though, I would have been saved a lot of suicidal ideation. And they'll be like, well, trans kids aren't killing themselves that much. And it's like, but are they spending their entire childhoods wanting to? Is that what you want for these? Anyway.
Yeah.
It's complicated, though, that whole thing. And I think because, again, like, it's only recently become part of the public consciousness.
Yeah.
So it's still very much discourse. Whereas the gay thing, they're like, we know what gays are.
Yeah.
People can wrap their head around
it. I think we're in this... I'm gonna put something out there. There's a lot of this like conversation that gives me trepidation as like a straight white dude, but like I feel like I just got to be open with my ignorance because it doesn't come from like a place of hate.
No, absolutely.
But it seems as though
lack of exposure.
Well, lack of exposure, but I think like there are genuine trans people. We all know this.
I know, and have always been.
Right, like, but it seems as though we're in this moment also in the wokeness thing where like there are people who are just straight white women applying these things for like control or cachet. Like there is a part of this movement that does seem disingenuous.
Yeah, and I think the thing is that anything with enough people a part of it, there's going to be.
Yeah.
Because individuals like Caitlyn Jenner, she sucks. You know what I mean? Like people are people. And I will say though, like people, you hear about every single time it happens, but people detransitioning is extremely rare. Like the actual numbers, it is very uncommon. It feels more common than it is because every time it happens,
somebody like the right
gets
side,
a huge stage.
Yeah,
like it gets a huge platform. They're like, see, look, and that's. I'm not again though. Maybe if we had more comprehensive sex ed, if it wasn't taboo, people might not be jumping to things that aren't good for them.
Well, I'm hoping.
I don't know.
That
it's
we're
complicated.
Well, it is complicated, but I feel. Hopefully that we're in a place where we can actually do some long-term studies so that way like we could
and those are happening
from a policy and educational standpoint have some like fact-based data to operate from.
Yeah, and that's the issue, and it's tough because it's so controversial and because it's people's lives. I mean, one thing I say to cis people is like nothing about your life needs to change. No one's trying to take your gender roles from you. You know what I mean? Like I think they think that, and sometimes I will say usually younger trans or just like liberal activists, they can maybe go too far, like hating men or whatever. Like, I'm not saying that doesn't happen. I will say almost always when people have those extreme whatever, they're always like 20 years old. Yeah. I will say that.
Well, like, I mean, it almost reminds me of like when you see somebody like newly convert to Christianity, like at the beginning,
so hard.
They're a lunatic.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And then it kind of levels out, and then like it's not that they're not a Christian anymore, but
people
they like
more moderate.
Yeah, they take the foot off the gas a little.
I think I have this unique thing too where because I grew up where I grew up, I have a lot of patience for people. And I have never found yelling at people effective about this stuff. Some people, like, there's behavior that's not acceptable, and I'm not saying that there shouldn't be consequences for transphobia. That's not what I'm saying at all. But I always say this, there's two different, for, like, just taking misgendering as an example. Yeah. Like, obviously, anything with the trans thing can be applied to this. But for that specifically, there are two kinds of people that misgender trans people. People who it's newer for them, but they're trying to understand it, and they're putting in effort to be compassionate and respectful. And then there's transphobic people. Yes. They are two very different energies, and immediately, in my opinion, discernible. Like if someone misgenders me, I know what's going on. Like it's never subtle. The two different. So I think people are allowed to grow.
I find it's always hardest when you know them pre-transition.
Yeah, of course.
That's the hard, like, and I totally not. This isn't an apples to apples comparison, but when like James Cummings stopped going by Jam Easy, it was like
adjustment.
Yeah.
Any kind of big shift. I mean, someone you've known by one name for like. There's people who knew me by my dead name. There's people who still know me by my name. Who knew me by my dead name for 20 plus years. Yeah. You know, people who've known me my entire life.
Did you choose your own name?
I sure did. Yeah. Mickey's not my given name.
Gotcha. I knew a person who transitioned, and their parents actually renamed.
That's nice.
Yeah, I thought that was pretty cool.
That's the dream.
That's the
for parents to be that, not just like I always say, tolerance doesn't actually feel great. Yeah. Like I tolerate this huge part of your existence.
Yeah, like this, and this was a person who...
It's not enthusiastic.
This was the person who transitioned with money.
Oh, that's so the way to do it.
Very young, and so I knew this person. We worked at a restaurant together. Yeah, and I just thought, this dude's super gay. Great, cool,
yeah,
right?
Totally.
We're friends.
Yeah,
and then you started to see, and then at the time he disappeared for a while, and then reemerges, and you're like, oh, that makes so much sense.
Until very recently, the general public really conflated, and including queer people, because again, if you don't understand your experience, you also will get conflated sexuality and gender. I remember my mom struggled with that. Like she couldn't understand someone wanting to be like someone being a gay man who's born a woman. It's like you're attracted to men. Why do you need to change genders? Yeah. And that's gendering sexuality. Yeah. And they are just sort of separate. Like, and I know that's confusing, I
think it's because I feel like for most of the population, it's not.
But I think that for some people, they are separate, and it's a spectrum, everything, and no one's 100% anything. It's all moving targets. I don't know. Like we're all, some people the target's more rigidly over here, or more rigidly over, Yeah. And some people it's like,
people are weird. People got their things. Also, I don't want this whole conversation to be about like trans stuff and like stuff like this. But like, what's going on in your life right now? Like, what do you like? When did you get into comedy?
Fair question. So, film and television is my background. Yep. And then during the pandemic, I was working on scripts with people, some things that are being pitched around, so in university, I narrowed my thing down to writing, a little bit of directing, but writing. And then kind of after graduation, I started to realize I'm always leaning to funny. Yeah. So I should just start to focus on comedy. Yeah. So I started focusing on that, and someone was like, you should try stand-up. Yeah. And I did musical theater growing up. Surprise. Yeah. My mom was like, even if she didn't want to admit I was gay, she's like, you're gay, arts. Yeah. And then didn't realize what that would translate to. Like, she pushed me towards the arts, and I'm like, oh my God, it's a bunch of drug-doing homosexuals.
Before we go back to comedy, how were your parents like with you when you were young? Because if you're like super into boy, like a tomboy when you were a kid, like how were they with that?
Extreme. It was complicated, you know. Yeah. My parents love me so much. They're good people.
Yeah.
And they always did their best. And I will say their best has improved, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, like they handled. They didn't. It wasn't that like I wasn't like kicked out or anything or told to not be gay or anything. But they handled the trans thing. It was easier for them, I think. And they just had a lot more time to think about these things.
Yeah.
And they were good to me. Like when I was little, they loved me so much. Mm-hmm. Anything that they did, and I will say, everything they did with the best of intentions.
And I feel like a lot of people
parents do. But
I was going to say, I feel like a lot of people don't.
Oh yeah, a lot of people are like, you're not going to be this thing. And my mom, I think, when any mistakes she made were made out of misguided attempts to protect me from like I was being horribly bullied.
Yes,
and I was so different. So she would try to like moderate, like she would try to talk me into feminine clothing. She would try to talk me into hair stuff. And it wasn't necessarily like I don't love you for who you are, but it was my mom didn't want me to ever experience homophobia and transphobia. Unfortunately, the better way to handle that is you can't control homophobia, transphobia. You can empower your child.
Yeah.
Though, to be able to stand up for themselves, to be able to articulate their identity. So again, that's just they did the best that they could with the information and experiences they had.
Yeah.
Is my opinion, and they love me so much. I'm a mama's boy.
Yeah.
You know, like it's the kind of thing.
It's cool to hear. It's cool to hear that, like, at least
they're great.
While you're going through this hard thing, I know these people are there for me.
I never questioned whether or not my parents love me.
Yeah,
never once.
Yeah, I think that's great.
Yeah, they're good people, and a lot of people do. And I know people who had, abusive situations. I was never abused. Never. And in fact, I was loved very much.
Yeah.
But again, like, no one's perfect. My parents are boomers from rural New Brunswick. And they're very Christian. Like, nothing's perfect.
Yeah.
But my mom once told me.
Were there? Oh, yeah. Sorry. Go for it.
My mom once told me, Mickey, it wasn't Mickey at the time, but Mickey, we can wrap our head around anything.
Yeah.
So the idea was like, they have sometimes needed to wrap their head around things, like rapping had to happen, but they always have, and they always will.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
They're nice.
Did you have any like moments where like who you were was very telling to like others?
Every day.
Yeah,
every day. I was so trans and gay, like it was, and I was a very gregarious, energetic, ADHD, shocking thing. And when you're in a small town and you're the kid of the priest, that's a big deal.
Yeah.
All the eyes are on you. So I couldn't even slip under the radar. Like, so much attention is paid to you.
Yeah.
But I just could never not be myself until high school. Then I tried to suppress it, and that went very badly.
Yeah.
But when I was a child, and I think that it went badly because I've never been able to not be me.
Yes.
I can't help it. It's just so much, So anyway.
No, that makes sense.
I don't know if that answers your question.
No, it does. It does.
I trail off. I go in circles.
It's true. Yeah. You do that, but that's
fine. I'm all over the place.
No, that's fine. It's just I just like I just love to hear about those experiences and how like people deal with that, because you wonder because it crosses your mind now. Like, what if your kid is gay? What are you gonna do?
Yeah.
Do you do anything? But like, when you notice it's happening, it's like, okay, like I need to
do something.
Yeah. Right?
Yeah. And there's no guidebooks. There's no. There's parental rights.
Yeah. Well, as a parent, I would want to know.
Of course. My only issue, and people push back against this so aggressively, is that some trans kids are abused.
Sure.
That's the thing.
But the thing is, like, there are non-trans kids who are abused.
No, of course. But if it will prevent, it'll make it worse, though, right?
Yeah, but I just think we have systems in place for people who are being abused, and it's like when those conservative sites like post the emails that are internal to the school, where it looks like they're actively trying to hide it from the parents. You're like, well,
they're just trying to respect these children.
I know. Well, and that's the struggle, right? Is the school you believe that the school is trying to do what they think is the right thing,
and they probably are most of the time. Like teachers.
Yeah.
Teachers, they like kids or whatever. Some of them.
Appropriately.
Actually, I've had some. Yeah. Honestly, I've had some horrible. Actually, one of the most homophobic experiences I ever had was a high school teacher.
I don't know. I have a friend who he teaches at a private school now, but when he was going through teachers college and like doing his placement, he was like, yeah, there are teachers who have not updated their lesson plans for like a decade.
It's checked out.
Like they're the problem with teachers, and I think a lot of heavy unionized positions is that there's less checks and balances.
Yeah, you get away with a lot.
The union will protect you.
Yeah,
exactly. So it's tougher.
You want to know who has a crazy union? This is so off topic.
That's okay.
The beer store, they got a crazy pants union. I knew a guy who got caught on camera stealing and drinking beer on his shift, and he didn't get fired because of that union.
I know a story of a person in a unionized environment who didn't like that somebody ate their lunch and then put dog poo
and didn't get fired
and put it in the fridge, and then not only didn't get fired, but the place had to pay for a new fridge.
And he didn't. He wasn't culpable for it.
They were not culpable.
This is making me sound anti-union. I'm not anti-union. Just people are people.
Well, I think the purpose of the union was to prevent workers from being exploited, which I think we can all
100 hours
on,
a week.
Yeah. Right, exactly.
Yeah,
but then at the same time, I also don't think that the union should be in this place where they're putting the source of the money in a chokehold.
Yeah.
Either, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Like I think there's healthy balances. I feel like the world is trying to figure out a lot of stuff all at once right now. Does it feel like that?
Yeah, there's been a lot of. It's like what happened in the like 60s, 70s, where it's with the free love movement. Like there's just a big social turnover happening. It's a pendulum progress, and that's why young people are swinging conservative. It just goes back and forth, back and forth, but it goes back and forth upwards. I think, or
it's almost like it's like stabilizing.
At least stabilizing, but I think it's going up because you look. I just think you can't. Obviously, this is such a generalization, but the quality of life. I mean, you even think about medieval times, like it's going up.
Yes.
Just not quickly, maybe, and it goes back and forth.
I don't think it can go quickly. I think I
don't think we work that way.
Like I think dictators are the ones that try to make things happen quickly, and it always goes bad.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Trump luckily will only be a dictator for a day. So
I mean, he wasn't a dictator. I think he's so funny though.
He's an idiot. He's a Hollywood man.
I know.
Who conned his way into this. It's crazy.
There's a part of me that this, like from an anarchist perspective, just like really loves it.
Let it burn.
Yeah.
We love watching
because I feel like there's
people be insane like this.
Like my thing with Trump is I almost feel like it's not as if people like love him. He's like a punishment. It's like
he's what America deserves. He's the president America deserves.
It's like you have been running the country this way. You've been like stealing from us.
Yeah.
Like all of the housing market stuff. Like the people who actually, I think it's a conspiracy theory term.
He's a messy queen, and he's
right. Like we call
it
what we call deep state. But I think you know what I mean. The permanent fixtures within government.
Corruption.
Right. And it's almost like the people are like, we don't like him, but we like what he's doing to you.
Yeah.
Right?
It's a funny thing what's happened to America in the last 10 years, I'd say. Not even though, actually, 5 years. I feel like.
Yeah,
or 5, 6. Well, I guess the
pandemic. He got elected in 2016.
Wow. So closer to 10 then, right? I have learning disabilities. That's closer to 10 than 5.
7 years.
Okay. Yeah.
No, 8 now. We're in 2024.
So like a decade. I think it's just like all the problems that people already knew were happening with America just became so obvious.
Well, and he definitely was like
he's a messy bitch.
The match that kind of ignited because at the same time
he showed how delicate their democracy is.
Well, and I think to people on the left on the liberal side, I think he was just they could not fathom him winning.
I know.
And him winning was such a profound insult. And surprised that they never let it go.
It's interesting watching people now because everyone's just like, yeah, he's gonna get elected again. Like that's very much.
And I could see him not like.
No, I think he will. I think that they're gonna take all his money away from him. They're doing a good job of it already.
Yeah, but that's the thing I think that galvanizes people towards him. It's like they're actually making a martyr out of him. But
but the
it's
thing
like they're trying to take
money
his
is
tools.
what controls all this. And it's the kind of thing like I think it's Pablo Escobar went to jail for tax evasion.
Yeah,
right. Like they can never get these powerful men for the actual like most serious crimes that they've done.
Mm-hmm.
But they get them where the money is. And if you get these guys where they're if you get their pocketbook. you take away so much of their power and influence.
Like the My Pillow guy.
Yeah, so I think they're going to take all his money, and he's just not going to be able to do what he does. And I think the conservatives, like the politicians, are going to secretly be relieved.
Yeah.
Right? Like, even the ones who say they support him, even Meatball Ron, I think they'll be like, oh, thank God. I do.
Yeah.
And Fox News will be like, thank God.
But in a way, then he'll just constantly be this...
He'll be martyred.
He'll be this specter.
Yeah.
That could always try to re-enter the race.
He's a ghost.
Right?
He is a phantom.
Yeah. Like, I almost wish in one way that he does get elected, because then it's over with. And then, like, you're getting
it just out of the way because he can't run again.
Yeah, and then he won't be able to actually run again, right?
Although he'll try and change that.
I don't know. I
don't think successfully, but although he's gonna die, the man's in his late 70s.
Well, and that's the other thing too. It's like, oh, he'll never let go of power. I'm like, yeah, he's at the end of his life already. Like, do you think this man eats healthy?
No, isn't he famously a Big Mac guy?
Yeah.
Isn't that a whole thing that he loves McDonald's?
I like the Trump diet. That's how I try to eat every day.
It's the North American diet.
Yeah.
He's an all-American boy.
Yeah. So he's not long for this world. I want to die.
He's not.
Like, Carl Weathers just died at 76. I'm like, that is the perfect age
for these guys to be dying.
To die is 76, right? I don't want to.
Yeah.
Yeah, like Midsummer, right? 72, jump off a cliff.
Just done.
Yeah.
Onto the rock, all your loved ones watching. Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
Everybody gather around. It's a process.
Everyone in your condo complex.
That's right. It's
yeah.
So you started writing comedy.
Oh yeah. I love that I got us onto America. I do this. My podcast with Danton is ridiculous because we both are like that.
Yeah.
We just okay. So someone was like, you should try stand up, and it didn't go badly.
And how long ago with this? That was the original question. How long have you been doing stand-up?
Jesus, man, Jesus. Honestly, like 2 years.
Okay.
Ish, approximately. And I've been doing it like full time for about a year and a bit.
Okay.
And people are like, wow, that sounds amazing. And I'm like, well, I'm poor.
Yes. Yeah, there are trade-offs.
There's a handoff. Less poor all the time, but poor.
Yeah.
I always knew. I was always, from a very young age, I've been very determined to be a creative professional.
Mm-hmm.
That's always been my goal. So, and you just know what that will come with, especially initially. Yeah. Like, and then film school is really good at letting you know. Film school is very much like look to the left, look to the right.
Oh yeah,
one of you's gonna make it.
Have you heard the stories of? I can't remember what his name was, but there was a teacher at Humber that would teach the class about how to like cook an egg on a light bulb wrapped in foil. Like it was just like a lesson on how to be poor.
Yeah, that's smart though. That's what they should do.
Yeah.
So it's good, but yeah, I have an arts degree, so I was working retail, and I realized that the amount I'd be making would be about the same. It's like kind of like a little bit above minimum wage, basically, is what I make a year, and then I'm dual income too, so I feel like that should be acknowledged.
Okay, yeah.
That's part of it. But so like a couple of years, and I started to really focus in on the lab, as you've seen.
Yeah.
And now I'm, pretty.
Yeah, you're pretty in. What's your goal? What's your vision for what you want to do with it?
Yeah, I mean, different things. It's all about having a lot of irons in the fire. So like I have a movie that's been getting pitched around for a few years. We'll see what happens with that. Danton and I are writing and producing Douche Rehab.
Yeah.
And he's brought me on I have a stake in Word, and so whatever happens with the lab, we'll work on that together. My fiance is always like, do you want to be a host your whole life, or do you want to be a headliner?
Yeah.
And I'm like, don't call me out like that.
Well, I mean, the thing is though, it takes a long time to become a headliner.
It does. And being a host is a great way to get a lot of material faster.
Yeah.
And I like it, and I'm good at it because I bring that camp counselor energy.
Yeah.
I'm like, woo, who's ready to rap about the Lord? Like that's the, I think that
catch your graham crackers.
Yeah, I think that works for people. I just want to do this for a living. Like I love stand up. I fell in love with it real quick, and I feel like I'm good at it in a way that's very satisfying, which maybe sounds weird, but I think we're all trying to find something we're good at.
Yes.
Like that's a nice feeling, and I am not good at a lot of conventional things. Like I have 3 fucking learning disabilities. So that's nice to feel like I sort of fit here.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna keep doing what I'm doing, and I want to write for film and television, and I think being a headliner would be cool, but just any type of stand-up will make me very happy.
Okay.
I love doing it.
So, because some people stand up, they almost view as like a stepping stone.
Yeah, side bitch.
Yeah, to other things.
I just like it so much, and I think that with writing, often you do both. It's to have enough income.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. Like it's
well, yeah. It seems like in Canadian comedy, you need to have, like you said, a few irons in the fire to.
And you look at a lot of character actors, a lot of comedy writers also do stand up comedy, and it's absolutely to just have a better income.
Yeah.
It's another source of it because it's immediate. And writing takes so long for the actual money to get in hand, and it's like a lump sum at once kind of thing. And
having done commercials, I can attest.
Yeah,
you won't get paid for months.
Yeah, exactly. Whereas stand-up comedy, if you can get to a certain place with it, that's regular income.
Yeah.
So and I just love doing it.
Yeah.
It helps my writing too, doing it. Like I am funnier. For it, like.
Well, it's almost like what I've noticed a lot lately with my writing is that when and everybody has their own way of doing it, but it's like I almost imagine myself performing it.
Yeah,
and that's when it seems to come.
Yeah,
when I'm writing it, and then I'll like spit it into my phone so I don't forget it.
Yeah, I'll get like a random idea.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like today I was thinking about how like one of the great things about kids is that you can use them as your excuse for not having good furniture.
For just having like trash things.
Yeah,
that's
like
funny.
yeah, I'm at IKEA by choice.
Right.
Right, because my kids are too young.
Right.
They'll wreck all my furniture. And it's not because I'm house poor.
Yeah. You have the walls, but not the.
Yeah, that's right. Is
that like house poor? Like that's real, eh? Like.
Oh yeah,
like you can afford the house and nothing else, kind of thing.
I think it's odd in comedy because I hang out with a lot of bro comics.
Almost exclusively,
and they think that I have money, and which in a sense I do.
You're like, yeah, I do, but it's this.
It's almost all spoken for.
Yeah.
Like as soon as it gets into my account, the majority of it is spoken for. So like, I have money, but I don't get to keep.
You don't have disposable income.
That's right. I don't have a ton of disposable income.
Yeah. So. You have people that depend on you.
That's right. I have literal dependents.
You have literal. Taxable dependence.
That's right. Yeah. My benefits cover them.
Good for you. Good. Nice. Yeah. My fiance's benefits are gonna kick in at some point soon, and I'm just like, thank God.
How do you feel about being a parent?
It's funny. I always wanted kids, and then now I think the thing that my fiance and I have realized is how career driven we both are, and how much we both like to work.
Yeah.
We're both kind of workaholics, so I think we're gonna play it by ear. And there's
no. How old are you?
I'm 20, almost 27.
Okay,
exactly. Like we're not rushing anything, and there's no biological countdown.
Yes.
And we've already decided that we have 2 uteruses in this relationship, and neither of them are getting used.
Yeah. Okay.
No, thank you. I've seen the videos. I've heard the testimonies, and I shan't be doing it. Like I shan't. Even just the fact I'd have to go off my Zoloft for 9 months, and I'm like,
yeah.
So it would be adoption or fostering anyway, and we can decide that much later.
Yeah.
We'll be mature parents if we have kids.
Yeah. Yeah, it's funny how wanting to have a baby will like get a woman off, like they'll quit smoking for it, like
everything. Yeah. My partner and I, we quit smoking cigarettes during the pandemic because they had a surgery coming up, so they had to be for a certain amount.
Yeah.
And neither of us wanted to be smoking, so we're like, this is good.
Yeah.
So, and I did it as well because we live in a small space.
Yeah. How did you start smoking?
Not a lot. I was never so my fiance went to high school in South Africa where you can be like 4 years old and go buy packs of cigarettes. You know what I mean? So they started when they were like 13 and it was sort of on again, off again.
Yeah.
And then for me, I had a couple cigarettes in high school, and then in university, it would be I was the person who, like, when I was drinking.
You're a social smoker.
I was a social smoker.
Yeah.
But I'm very social.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Yes. Yeah. I know exactly what you mean. Yeah.
So, and I tried to switch to vaping, and then I was more addicted to nicotine than I ever had been. Then I wasn't a social smoker anymore because that shit is fun, and it's just like a bam cigarette. Like
I watched the documentary about the Juul documentary.
Yeah,
it was crazy.
Naughty boys. Yeah,
you know what? It's interesting though because I mean I feel like they meant well. They wanted people to not smoke cigarettes, and then but then they got shut down, and then that market got just handed over to China.
Yeah.
Right? So it's not necessarily that they were like the most evil.
No. They get real excited about something that maybe isn't actually significantly better for you? Yeah. They did. And that's whatever.
Well, so it's like I'm always cognizant about what I share publicly. But my wife works for a charity, and so one of the things that charity talks about is how like we should view vaping to cigarettes as we do Diet Coke to Coca-Cola.
Yeah, neither are good.
They're not
one is lesser
good,
evil,
but they're way better.
Yeah,
they're way better than the alternative.
No, absolutely. Yeah. When my fiance quit, I went cold turkey.
Yes. Okay.
And they weaned off, and they had a schedule, and I looked at the calendar, and every day was a visual representation of how annoying I was going to be. And it's just getting worse and worse and worse.
Who do you think had the worst experience between?
They did.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, for me it
cold
was like a week
better?
or two. I was like, and then I was fine. And for them, it was just this horrible. And they were always smoking more than me.
Yeah. They weren't even a social smoker.
They smoked it with their weed.
Oh.
And they don't really smoke weed much at all anymore. They're a very responsible citizen. But for a minute there, they smoked a lot of weed. Big stoners. We both were.
I know. I like that. And apparently, my brother went to Europe, and he said that like Canadians will like roll joints with no tobacco in them, and they look at you like you're insane.
In
like
Europe.
It's a big thing to put tobacco in your weed in Europe.
In Europe, yeah. Well, and my fiance grew up all over the world. They never stayed in one place. Their parents were like, if we move, our problems don't follow us, so that's good. So we're gonna move a lot. Is that kind of an energy? That kind of an energy.
A fugitive childhood.
Yes, honestly though, yeah. Alcoholism and money are messy business. So they were all over the place.
Yeah, I mean, I know somebody who was a guidance counselor at Havergale.
Okay.
You know Havergale?
Sounds familiar. Is that private school,
It's
right?
a private all-girls school.
Yeah, and it's like...
And the stuff that they're getting into is crazy.
It's the good shit.
Yeah.
Yeah, and their dad has a really good job, and, they do have...
but they don't really see him.
No. Yeah, exactly. And it's very dysfunctional. And they lived in Germany, they lived in Chile for a little while when they were really little, and then South Africa for high school.
Okay.
So just like all over the place.
Yeah.
And they would go to their dad's job would pay for them to go to these ridiculous private schools with, diplomats' children's and stuff, like crazy stuff.
So my first missions trip, I went to...
You did missions, eh? Yeah. My parents were missionaries.
Short term. I never did like a long term. So when I was... Because do you know my story at all?
You've talked about it that you grew up Catholic.
So
no, I got it all wrong then.
Well, I grew up nothing.
Okay.
I grew up nothing. I did 10 grams of magic mushrooms at 17.
Yep.
That's what got me on the God train.
And you said evangelical, right?
Yeah. So I would have called myself a Christian before I was actually going to a church.
You had an epiphany.
I had like an experience. And so then I got a job at the shoe company, the shoe store.
Okay.
And one of the guys working there was a youth leader at a church nearby.
Right.
And so we were talking about stuff. So that's when I went out to church for the first time.
Okay.
And then after I was done high school, I went to Venezuela for like a week or so. We did like a short term.
Right.
I can't remember what we were talking about. Oh yeah, sorry. So we helped with the camp out there, and so we met these. So they run the missionaries ran like an English school.
Right.
And so a lot of like kids who aren't Christians will go there just so they can talk to other people who speak English.
Right.
It was like the only way that they could. So there were these kids from who were Canadian living in Venezuela because their dad was the CEO of
whatever
like the chicken fast food place of South America. Yeah. So they're bawling.
Yeah.
Bawling.
Yeah. Especially in these impoverished countries.
Oh yeah. Like their houses guarded, armed guards.
South Africa, you're either living in an armed guarded gated community, crazy mansion houses, or you're living in a tin hut. And there's no in between. There's no middle class.
South Africa to me seems wild and dangerous and scary.
It's startling. It's just such a harsh contrast.
Yes.
Like there is literally no middle class. You're either rich,
or you're very not,
or you're living in destitute poverty. There's no.
Really? Yeah.
And there's a lot of separation. Yeah.
And I gotta go through both just to see some great white sharks.
You know what I mean? Yeah. Honestly. Yeah, it's fun for white tourists. Then it's a good time.
Yeah.
With money.
Yeah, the world is a
crazy place.
It's a crazy place.
Yeah, humans, we're these crazy monkeys, dude. Yeah. Like it was like 1,000 years ago, we were just chilling in a tree in the Sahara, and now we have airplanes. Airplanes are manic.
I know.
That is a manic invention.
I feel like
that's ridiculous.
Did you see those that thing on social media of the plane that was like missing bolts out of the wing?
Yeah, and the door flew off.
And a door flew off.
This guy's shirt off.
Like I feel like we're gonna move into this place where we can't afford anything anymore, and then like air travel is gonna become more expensive if you want it to become safer. And I think like in the future, we're going to see less people fly because of it.
A lot of budget.
This is a split-second decision. I could be very wrong, but doesn't it seem that way?
A little bit, and like a lot of budget airlines are having trouble financially. Like Flair just declared bankruptcy.
Did they?
Because of tax evasion. They owe a lot of money.
Okay.
You know what I mean? So I do think, I mean, I can't even imagine the overhead in that business.
Yeah, well, it used to, remember, like in the 70s, they didn't even check your bags.
No, and you were like drinking and smoking and partying and
like there was,
and now grandma can't have a knitting needle.
Yeah.
I mean, you never know. Fair. Okay, so you went evangelical, and you're not still.
I mean,
are you kind of where I am, where you're sort of
like we still go? So I'll just lay it like here are the things I'm sure about. I definitely believe in God.
Yeah, same.
And I think that. Like there's that whole the case for Christ stuff. Like I think Jesus was a real person.
Oh, he was.
Right. And I think that I see people convert to Christianity and it's like they really change.
Yeah.
Right. And so there's this thing about Jesus that I find really undeniable. And if he's saving people, I'll take it.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. But then it's like I think the church in North America is broken.
Yeah. Probably globally to a degree.
Right. And I think I don't know. Like there are small churches that like maybe work or something. Like just I'm not really sure about church, and then I'm not really like the Bible is a crazy book, and I think the evangelical world really is hard on like Bible literalism.
I get really nervous with creationists. I'm like,
I used to be. I used like
sure, yeah. Well, evangelical.
When I first came into it, I was just like, probably God did evolution. Like that was kind of the extent of my thought on it. I kind of left it there, and then I had a friend show me. Did you ever watch the Kent Hovind? Do you ever watch Kent Hovind?
I don't think so.
He was like a young Earth creationist. Yeah. And so they showed me these videos on VHS.
And you were like,
And I was like, I was like, wait, Christians don't believe in evolution? Right. And my buddies were like, yeah, like, no, it's not true.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, but at the time I was so hardcore that I was like, if this is what the team believes, then this is what we believe, right?
There is a mob mentality. And I think that's not specific to religion, any group of people, any organization.
I mean, you get in there and you think... you find out that there are actually smart people in it, right? You assume like if there's things I don't know, there's going to be someone who does know the answer.
Yeah.
Right. And then the older you get, you start to realize that the people who are older than you and you think are smarter than you aren't. Yeah. And they don't know as much and they're just as clueless as you are.
There's always an older version of yourself that's not intimidated by the people you're intimidated by now.
Yeah. And then so the like I said, I said this in an earlier podcast, the kind of first like wedge moment was I was listening to this podcast called the Bad Christian Podcast. Mm-hmm. Have you heard of it? Mm-hmm. Yeah. And they had this guy on named Chris Date who runs this website called Rethinking Hell. And his whole thing is about annihilationism.
Awesome.
I don't know if you know what that is. Yeah. So basically that like hell is like a mechanism by which people who don't believe are extinguished, like their consciousness no longer exists rather than, but I was like, I found it from a biblical perspective at the time really compelling. Yeah. And I was like, well, if this guy's, and then I heard him debate Al Mohler. I don't know if you've heard of Al Mohler, who's like a really big figure, and he demolished him. Yeah. Like totally demolished him. And I was like, well, if the church and this guy, Chris Date, he like couldn't be a pastor in most churches in the US, couldn't be a member in churches, couldn't go to certain universities in the US because of this view. Right. I'm like, if this is the correct view, what else are these guys wrong about? Right. Yeah. And I'm just at this place where I'm like, I don't want to defend like genocides in the Old Testament. I don't want to like.
I think that people, my beef has never been with God. And it's not even that I wanted to have beef with religion. Religion had beef with me. They started it.
Well, did you have a moment where you read the verses in Leviticus and Romans and were like, this is where you were
a lot of shame, a lot of internalized shame.
Okay, so but when you don't remember seeing a moment where you were aware like, oh, this is what our book says about homosexuality?
I don't know. I think once I started thinking about those things, I became aware of it. It's interesting, and I, especially as a teenager, like a lot of the homophobia and transphobia when I was a child in the church wasn't really much. Like, I don't know, but when I hit puberty is when I started to have weird experiences with adult people in the church. You know, and I worked at this Christian summer camp, and I have a lot of trauma there. Yeah.
Which one?
Camp Hyanto represent. It's not open anymore. But
I don't know. Okay.
It's very rural. But I went there as a camper, loved it. Went as a teenager, and it was awful. There was this priest who was there a lot, and he was clearly deteriorating in his mental health, which was being translated through going from being like a very classic Anglican guy, kind of a little bit uptight but nice, to like cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs, like just, and very American evangelical. Like he brought up an American prophecy teller, like fortune teller, who was so homophobic. Like, and he just overnight was so... It was and speaking in tongues, and Anglicans are socially uptight.
Yes.
Like, they're not doing that. They're more like Catholics in that way.
They're very Canadian.
They're very, very Canadian. And so it was very noticeable. That was a lot, and I had some weird experiences there. This man was clearly not good. And then other people too, and
yeah, I always found like the prophecy thing you were talking about, like the charismatics I always had trouble with.
The charismatics are stressful. A lot of laying of hands. Well, like, don't touch me.
It's the people who say they have the discernment gift.
Yeah.
That I've always had an issue because I wasn't raised in the church. There have been always parts of it that I was never comfortable with.
Yeah.
But the people who with the discernment gift, that God told me stuff or I can tell stuff, like the hidden knowledge people. Yeah. I've always had an issue. I went to Bible college for a year and a bit, and
Which one?
Tyndale.
Okay,
I was there for a year. Then I ran out of money. Finished at York.
Okay.
Got a history degree. I realized I was too mean to be a pastor.
Okay.
At the beginning, I was so gung ho about church that I thought I should be a pastor, and then I realized that
I had phases where I wanted to be a priest.
Yeah, I thought, and then I realized that I was nowhere near nice enough. I was always getting in trouble in church, right? But they were way more patient with me than I probably deserved.
Right.
What was I talking? In Bible college.
Charismatics are spooky.
Yeah, well, the guys would be like, God told me we should get married. Like the people would pull that stuff.
That's so
right.
I like it.
I'm gonna prophesy over you. Like I see you working with homeless people. Like you were like,
that's a lot,
right?
Yeah.
People put this thing on other people, and
I was very skeptical because even though my dad's a priest, there's like I said, socially more conservative. Dad is not a charismatic Christian at all.
Yeah,
he's just not, and I don't think he's a creationist like at all either. I think I don't. Again, he doesn't communicate. So I don't know what he thinks about most things. People are like, "What does your dad think?" And I'm like, "I don't know. Ask him."
I'm just looking to not rock the boat here.
Yeah. So it's funny. Like I was raised religious, but when I encountered that stuff, I'd be kind of like, because that's just not how my parents interpreted it. My dad, I think my dad, because he talked to other people about God and stuff. I think he was so afraid of influencing us in a negative way. So his solution was to just not influence us at all.
Yeah. Okay.
And not ask questions he doesn't want the answers to, and not have these conversations.
Okay.
As I think he just was worried about fucking up.
Yeah.
I think.
Are your other siblings into it or not into it?
Yeah, they're all Christians.
They're all still in it.
Yeah, okay. I'm the only person in my family, and I haven't even had a conversation with them about it. I think they know.
Yeah.
Like, again, like they'll never say it. They'll never have. They're non-confrontational to a fault.
Yeah.
Right. So like they'll never be like, "You're not a Christian anymore, are you?" They'll be like, "Oh, there's this church that opened up that's LGBTQ friendly. You should go."
Yeah.
Kind of thing, or like invite me to like church services or give me like it's these little things. And they'll mine for information, but they won't just ask for information. So it's this very tiptoey kind of thing. So yeah, they're not aggressive to a degree that it's an issue.
Yeah.
And then my fiance, oh my God, they're Germans. They are the opposite. They don't have that Canadian pussyfooting.
No, I've heard Germans are very not necessarily aggressive, but blunt, very straightforward,
and exhausted with pussyfooting. Like they don't have to. They're like, why aren't you just saying what you're thinking? Like, why are we? Yeah. They don't beat around the bush.
Yes,
and we love the bush.
Oh no, as Canadians in particular, we don't want to offend anybody.
I know. We're not polite. We're passive aggressive.
No, I mean that's why I always feel like embarrassed saying it, but I always wanted to be American. When I was a kid, like Superman was American. All the shows came from America.
Well, yeah, we're influenced.
All the good things, all the cool things were there. Like I'm writing a bit about it. Like I want to write a bit about it. Like Canada, Like, it always sucked. I always thought it sucked.
There's things, yeah.
Well, it's like, I remember they're like, I was in class once and they were showing us the difference between Canada and America.
Yeah.
And they were like, this is how TV channels sign off, because this back in the day, remember where TV would actually run out of stuff to put up, and so they would sign off for the night.
Yeah.
And they would have some like that. So the Canadian ones would show like, it was all like nature videos.
I remember.
Yeah. And then the American one is just a fucking F-16.
Yeah.
And my teacher's like, see how different they are, as if the Animals was better than the F-16.
Yeah, no.
And you're like a 9-year-old boy. I'm like, the F-16 is way cooler.
Way cooler. Yeah. It's funny, like guns and stuff. And I grew up rural, and I do not like the way America deals with gun laws. I think it should be so much more restricted. I get the appeal. It feels real good to fire.
Yeah. I've only fired a gun like twice.
Yeah.
Yeah, hunting.
Same. No.
Yeah.
Yeah. No. It feels great. I get it, but just don't pretend it's for some other reason, like your freedom.
I just realized that that's a joke. Like, I fired a gun twice. Like, the first time I was hunting, the second time I killed a guy.
Okay. Yeah. I went by. I did time. Yeah.
I robbed an old lady.
An old lady, but at gunpoint.
That's right.
That's necessary.
Yeah, I robbed a young family, and
yes, yeah. Just some of my daughter's classmates.
Yeah, that's right.
Stole their lunch money.
Yeah. I'm cash poor here, like this.
Yeah.
Or house rich. What is that?
House rich. Yeah. I'm both. I am house and cash poor.
Yeah.
Especially now, it's so expensive out there.
I know.
Let's complain about the economy. Let's do it.
Well, I saw that. Did you see that social media video of the lady in Costco showing the chicken drumsticks at Costco for $200 something?
Yeah, I believe it.
For like a pack of 16 or 24 or something?
No, nothing is affordable anymore. It's pretty bonkers. And I mean, we talk about rent, and housing, it's obscene. But yeah, just food.
Yeah.
It's pretty wild. My parents retired back in the Maritime. My whole family are Maritimers. My parents were the only ones to ever leave. Okay. For bigger, brighter things in Epony, Ontario. Yeah. But they've retired back in the Maritimes, and it is so much better there for a cost of living standpoint.
Yes.
Thing is there's no industry or young people.
I was saying that to my wife. I'm like, do you think our kids are just going to move to the East Coast? Like,
they should, honestly. They should.
Well, I have a sister-in-law out there.
Oh, yeah.
And, yeah.
It's nice. It's pretty.
It's hard for a place that only has good weather like 2 months a year.
That's true. That's true.
I was in Halifax, and but in the summer, gorgeous,
lovely town.
But then, like, you talk to people, like, what's it like? They're like, this is the only time it's nice.
Exactly. Yeah, you just have to try and live somewhere where it's so beautiful it can make up for it. Like, my parents live somewhere so beautiful, even when it's snowy. I mean, yeah, it sucks, but it looks like a painting.
I during the pandemic, I very seriously researched Victoria.
Yeah.
To move.
It's nice, pretty. It's cold.
More expensive though. If Victoria's cold.
No, they're warm. You're right. BC.
And I did read that Victoria gets as much rain as New York.
Huh.
So it's not as bad as Vancouver.
Right. That's interesting.
For rain, so I was like,
But Vancouver and that is so expensive. The Maritimes, there's just a lot of the industry that used to be there is obsolete. It's just lumber and fishing now, really.
Well, that's the thing that I wonder. It's like, you're moving out there.
The mine's shut down
because it's cheap. But then what is there to do? Like, I remember my dad would always like bug me about like, why are you living in Toronto? You should move somewhere else. I'm like, and work where?
And I know that's
work
the thing.
Where?
It's a great place to retire. It's if you're outdoorsy, it's great. Yeah. Like it depends on what your hobbies are. I think whether or not it would be worth it for your personal life. I just want a farm somewhere, so I don't know. But again, like I'm living in Toronto. For work, for industry.
Well, you got into university for film. Like, what is it? What drew you to film? What are some? I want to talk favorite movies because I love movies.
Okay, so hard, but yes, we will. I did theater a lot. I'm a get on it.
Me too.
Big fish, small pond.
Did you know I got into U of T in York for theater?
There you did.
And then I went to Bible college instead.
That's how it goes.
Yeah.
That's how it goes.
Yeah. For literally no one. Literally.
Yeah. Well, it's like you were probably in a way you were rebelling. Like that's why kids with hippy dippy millennial parents are like.
I'm a hippy dippy millennial.
Right,
I'm the millennial parent.
Yeah,
I had boomer. I have boomer parents.
Me too.
Yeah. And then my kids are alphas.
How old are your parents? Can I ask?
I have young parents.
Your kids aren't Gen Z. That's a thing now.
No, my kids are alphas.
Alpha. This is the first time. Yeah. Wait, sorry. When were your parents born?
My dad was born in 57 and my mom like early 60s.
Okay,
or I think she was born in 60,
our
59
parents
or 60.
are about the same, or close in age.
Yeah, so I have very young parents.
Yeah, and my mom was 35 when I was born.
Okay, yeah.
So
my mom was 23.
Oh, yeah.
My parents got...
Nice.
Yeah.
It happens.
Yeah.
It happens. People will be... It's so funny. I mean, I'm not even really that young to be engaged, but people are like, you're too young to get married. I'll be like, oh, you're right. I'll go break off the engagement right now. Like, thanks for the... like...
No, I mean, I think secretly people are jealous.
Yeah.
That's what I tell myself anyway. Because I got married at 24.
Yeah.
But I think when I talk to a lot of people, especially guys, they're like, I kind of wish...
Yeah.
Because I think it's... What a lot of them say to me is that it signals that you'd probably just found somebody really good early on.
And we're smart enough to lock them in. Yeah. I know. And we've been together for 8 years. It's not like a quick decision.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. It wasn't like, and I'll say that, and they'll be like, but you were too young to whatever. And I'm like, well, why would I end a happy, functional relationship just because you feel like whatever?
Or if it was not going to work, it would have run its course by now.
There's been no 7-year itch.
Yeah.
There's been none. Like, it's just not, anyway, I digress. Yeah. My tattoo artist was talking about, I was just mentioning that I was engaged or whatever, and I am young, I think, for my generation, because we pour out here. And he was like, honestly, I'm in my 30s. I broke up with a lot of great guys in my 20s because they weren't perfect. And now I'm in my mid to late 30s, and there's nothing out there.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that's interesting. And I think no one's perfect.
Well, it's hard in the church world because like everybody gets married young.
Yeah,
like,
absolutely.
I remember I used to lead worship for the college and careers group once or twice, and the desperation.
Yeah. I had that. I always fantasized about getting married at a young age, and my parents have a good marriage. I think that probably accelerated that. They like each other a lot.
Mine's the opposite. My parents had a bad marriage, but it inspired me to want to have a good one.
Yeah. I think that's probably my fiance.
Which I did up until, and then I started comedy, and then I wrecked it.
And now it's terrible. How is your wife with comedy?
Yeah.
That's yeah.
I think it's
tough,
like
right?
it's mixed.
It's tough for these long-suffering partners of comedians.
It's mixed. I think it's mixed in the sense of like, obviously I'm out of the house a lot,
and she wants you to be happy,
and she wants me to be happy.
Yeah, you're gone.
She knows that I'm good at it.
Yeah,
she knows like that I like it and that I'm good at it. It's bearing fruit.
Yeah, it doesn't want to hold you back.
It doesn't want to hold me back, but then at the same time, it's like...
It's a lifestyle shift.
Yeah, it's like, I'm doing this. And like, I don't tell her that she has to leave the house, but she's just like, well, if you're going to do your podcast, I'm going to use the opportunity to like get the kids out of the house and go do something.
Yeah.
Yeah. So like, but I feel like I made her feel like she has to leave.
Right.
Like...
does she care about like staying out late and stuff?
No. So like, are you intimating at possible romantic encounters?
Like what? No. Just like absence.
No, I mean, luckily our kids are still young enough that they go to bed at a pretty reasonable hour.
Right. Nice.
And so when I leave at like 7 or
She's
something
like,
to go do comedy,
have a glass of wine.
Yeah, it's like I'm saying goodnight. Like she knows that I'm not going to be back till she's going to sleep or asleep.
Yeah.
And again, like we try to make it. We're just trying to make it work. And
because you're what, like a couple of years, 2, 3.
I'm 2.5.
2.5. Yeah, 2.5. So it's still adjusting, and then you get better at it, and then you're doing it more. Yeah,
you get better at it. You're doing more. I'm in a weird place now where I'm not really like. At least for this, I don't know. I feel like I'm not chasing anything other than getting good.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm not chasing specific shows. I'm not chasing any credits. I'm not chasing, like, obviously I want to do stand-up comedy at the best places. Yeah. I want to perform it in front of audiences that are excited.
The best way to do that's to get good.
Yeah, well, exactly. Like I was talking to a comic not long ago, and they were kind of bemoaning their place and not getting on shows and stuff like that, or
be funnier.
Well, and I just said like how you're treated in the scene, on average and for the most part, is going to be indicative of how you're doing.
How funny you are, also like how pleasant you are to have around.
Yeah.
Like there's a lot of funny people, but if you're a professional and not an asshole, that's huge.
Yeah.
I agree with you. You'll see a lot of these guys out here, and they're hustling and they're working hard, but they're not working smart.
Yes.
You'll see guys and they just grind the mics day in and day out, but they don't get any better.
Yeah, that happens.
And I don't think they're working smart.
Yeah, I say that all the time.
Yeah. Which is how I justify not doing as many mics as other people.
Well, no, but I agree, because if you're not, you need to take time to go back to the drawing board, right? Like if you need to write, you need to perform, and then you need to review, and you need to edit. Yeah.
If you're just,
Yeah. So like I'm in a place where like I want to build my set. I want to get better.
Yeah.
And like there's a comic I know, I think it's, I can't remember his name, but he's a comic in Oakland, and we're like Instagram friends.
Okay.
And he's been doing comedy a while, and he's just like, yeah, don't chase credits, chase jokes.
They'll come to you.
Right?
My only like actual stand-up credit, I wasn't hunting for it. It kind of a few things, just hard work paid off. That's all that happened.
Yeah.
Like
relationships.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Exactly. And I think I always say that like luck is opportunity, and opportunity meeting ability.
Yes. Or opportunity meets preparedness.
Yes, that's the term. Yeah. That's the term. Yeah. That's what it is. Opportunity meets preparedness. Because a lot of people can't take opportunities that they're not prepared for. And that's where and you can make your own luck by being prepared for these things when they come along.
Absolutely.
Which is what you're doing. That's what you're saying.
Trying.
Yeah. I see you out there. Yeah. You're at Backroom a lot, right?
No.
We talked about this. Opposite. Oh, we probably shouldn't be.
No. I just I think Backroom's fine. It's just I don't get on there much.
Yeah.
And I think and I feel like when I go there, it's kind of a gamble. And when you can only be out 3 or 4 nights a week, I think when I go out, I need to guarantee that I'm going to get some stage time, and so it's no fault on them for how they run their club. I love those guys. Like I love that they have their club, but for me, I gotta do time when I'm out.
People will get so shook when they see me places that aren't the lab, like mainly mics. But that's kind of. I mean, I started going to the lab a lot because I like Danton, and we became good friends. But part of it too is like I'm going to invest in this place, so they invest in me.
Yes.
And now I get all kinds of stage time there, and I don't have to do other open mics.
Yeah.
I do occasionally, just to whatever.
Well, it's good to get out in front of
different
of other places, and like it's almost good to just like go to a place that you know is bad. That's hard, right? Just for the sake of like
somewhere you're not comfortable.
Yeah, somewhere you're not comfortable. Someplace where you know the audience is going to be tough.
Yeah.
And like test yourself, right?
Yeah, absolutely. What I like about the lab is that the audiences do vary a lot. Like it's different groups of people, which is kind of interesting. But yeah, and you're at the lab with some regularity.
Oh, if I'm writing new stuff, it's a must.
Everyone says that.
I must go there.
It started off, I would only do new stuff at the lab. I don't know what it is. It's just a good room. There's always audience, and the audiences, they're never mean, but they're honest.
Yes. Yeah, and but I do find that when it does work, it works well.
Everywhere.
And and you can like I have one joke that only worked there.
Oh yeah.
It hurts. I loved it so
Brutal.
much. Yeah.
Brutal.
But it's a place where I'm going to give these new jokes their due here.
Right.
Right? You can go to other spots and you could be like, I got to try it again cuz I don't know.
Yeah.
Right? Like comics only is the last way you should judge a joke.
Yeah, they're terrible audience members. I won't let them when I host the mics at the lab. I force them to be good audience members by yelling at them.
And there's something about the energy of the lab where the comics become audience there for whatever reason.
It's the only place they pay attention to comedy. Yeah,
it's like I feel like it's because we know it's our spot because it has that
and there's
reputation. Yeah, there's just something
People
about
let
that.
Their guards down.
Exactly. There's I think
that's Danton largely.
I think it's Danton, but I think it's the space. I think
it's intimate but dark.
You're crammed together.
Yeah.
It's dark, low ceilings. It's perfect for comedy.
It's perfect for comedy.
Perfect for comedy.
And people will be like, it's so grungy. And it's like, yeah, but that's what Danton wanted for his brand. He looked at other rooms.
Yeah.
And he likes the grunge.
No, it totally, I mean, there are so many shows where I'm saying to the producer, I'm like, are we going to like take the lights down?
I know.
Are we going to?
I know. Whenever I'm hosting and the lights aren't dark enough, I will address it off the top. I'll be like, I know you're Canadian. and you're going to feel self-conscious if you're not plunged into darkness, but I need you to forget about all that, and I need you to laugh loudly.
Yeah, it needs to be dark. People don't
so
judge
good.
themselves when they
They
can't
don't.
see other
They're
people.
uninhibited when they're anonymous. Yeah, absolutely. They're especially Canadians. They're just not rowdy.
I saw you looking at your phone. How much time have we?
Oh, no. That was more just making sure that my fiance hasn't texted me.
Gotcha. Yeah. Oh, we've been on like an hour and a half.
Nice. I don't know how long you usually record.
You know what? I usually have my watch that tells me when we've done like an hour, and then I try to
have a good chat.
You know what? That's what I've been doing lately. I've been just
letting it happen.
I just let it happen, and they've been going longer as a result.
Good thing.
I think so.
Yeah.
I think just trying to have like an organic conversation and see where it goes and follow certain threads.
Totally.
And I try to be curious.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah, that's good. That's good. You're
Tell
a good
me more
interviewer,
about that.
too.
Oh, thank you.
You're a good interviewer. Some people aren't.
Yeah, I mean, I think it takes time. Like, I think you're number 21.
Wow.
Yeah.
And that's exciting. And like Spotify, YouTube.
Yeah, I put them. I put them all up in their entirety, video wise, on YouTube, and then audio. I put them up on Spotify.
Clips on TikTok.
Clips everywhere.
Everywhere. Okay.
Yeah, I put my clips on Threads, X, TikTok, YouTube, and Instagram.
Yeah,
and then audio. I upload to Spotify.
It's good to have it there.
Yeah, and then you can use Spotify to like aggregate, and so then it'll also put it out on Apple and Google Podcasts too.
Right.
You got to do the legwork to set that up.
Absolutely. Yeah, for sure.
But once you get it, it's done. But it is a little difficult.
It's all tedious. It's very tedious.
Right?
Yeah.
How's your podcast going?
It's going okay.
What's your podcast called again?
Well, we're thinking about changing the name. Our podcast, like, we've been like figuring it out as we do it, and it's getting more refined. It was the Father and Son podcast.
Yes. Which I always loved that intro that you do on stage when you're with Danton.
It took me so long to convince him that was funny. For months, he was like, okay. And now he's on board.
Yeah.
I wore him down. It's just because like we couldn't physically look more different, and that made me laugh. But we're actually personality-wise quite similar, which people don't expect. I think people find it jarring how much we get along.
Yeah. I think people would are surprised like how Danton looks versus how he is as a person.
I think even me too, to a degree.
Okay.
These guys are always worried that I'm gonna cancel them, and I'm like, have I ever given anyone shit for anything? Like, if I didn't like your comedy, I don't care. Like, I'm not like thinking about it. Like, I don't know. And I get irritated. Like, I remember one guy at the 80s night was like, oh, tiptoeing around on the 80s night. And I literally shouted, I was like, no, you fucking don't.
Yeah.
Like, that's just not true. Or one guy was like, oh, Mickey, I don't think you're going to like this one. And he did it. And I was like.
The 80s night is the Lab's Thursday night mic where it's preference.
Women and queer people get priority.
That's right.
But I will say, and any of the guys that hang out, first of all, if you do good if you're funny and you're chill, you will get a certain amount of favoritism. Also, I stay there till 1 a.m. and I get through every dude that stays.
Yeah.
You know, and I work really hard to give them good stage time as well.
Yeah, that's cool.
You know, and like hype them up and keep the energy high. And even if the audience leaves, make sure the comics are fun. Like, I do my best to, it's not like a favoritism thing. It's just equal opportunity. And
I think it's very in line with the
Danton's
place
brand.
that with what Danton wants to do.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the thing. So and the guys that are chill know that.
But I think what's very unique about Danton's space is that it's a place that welcomes and wants to give a space for, for minorities, if lack of a better term. I feel bad.
No, that's what it is.
Right. For queer people and gay people and all that sort of stuff. But yet it's still a place where every straight white dude wants to go.
Everyone's welcome.
Yeah. But it's not just, you're not just welcome, but like you can still you can still kill there. Everybody can kill there. Yeah. And I think that there are some places where that's not the case.
No, absolutely.
And I think that's what makes the Lab really, really unique is that literally everybody can go there and do well.
Yeah, and it's neat. And I don't think anyone feels excluded. There's one comic who does, and I'm just like, I don't know, bro. Every now and then, I don't know, there's this comic that I've never even spoken to. Mm. And there was a thing with my fiance where he came up and started kind of bullying someone they were talking to. And my fiance's German and was basically very intimidating and shut him down. And I think emasculated him. And now apparently he's been going around saying Mickey doesn't like me. And I'm like, bro, we've never even spoken.
Like, yeah, see, you know what?
The insecurity.
Forget about that.
I was like, dude, and I'm not thinking about it. No. But I was just like, wow.
I know. There's a little high schoolness to this. Is it? Yeah, I don't
like it. Dude, I don't care about you. I'm not thinking about it. Yeah. Anyway, that's my plight.
Well, I mean, yeah, it's
my argument, my complaining.
Yeah, well, it happens. Comedy is a weird place. Like we said throughout this whole podcast, people are weird, and they're weird in every place.
Yes.
But like Sam Norton said, it's the island of misfit toys.
Yeah, right? Poets of nonsense.
And yeah, I love it though. I love how we're all this mixed bag of.
It's funny. It's all wallflowers and misfits.
Yeah.
And people who maybe have felt overlooked or haven't felt like they fit anywhere.
Yes.
And they just do in this community.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's interesting. It's very fun. One of the reasons I like comedy so much is I enjoy the community more than film and television, because film and television, it's a lot of suits.
Oh,
it's a lot of frat boy energy. Like,
oh yeah, I saw the difference almost immediately.
It's exhausting. They're not fun.
Well, when I was doing like TV commercial auditions and stuff like that, meeting real actors, and how different they are, and how it's just such a different world.
It is,
because like I would go in and do like audition. Like I was talking to one guy once. I don't do them anymore.
Yeah,
but I said to a guy like, yeah, well, he's just like, oh, how do you think it went? I'm like, who cares?
Yeah.
I'm like, as soon as I walk out of this building, I'm never going to think about this audition again. And he's like, oh, really? Like, I don't know how you do that. I'm just like, dude, like doing a pre-prepared script for 4 people is never going to be harder than doing stuff I wrote for 40.
Your soul. Yeah. Right? Like, no, of course. I think that like the difference might even be laughter. Like there's this inherent joy built in. Yeah. I know that like comics are seen as being very mentally ill and depressed, and we are, but I think we're also weirdly at the same time the happiest people, and we're having fun.
Yeah, well, like we're having fun, like saying awful things, and it's because we know it's like that. It's that thing that Dave Chappelle says. Like, I'm not saying it to be mean. I'm saying it to be funny, and because we know that, we can say these things because we knew that like. The reason they said that wasn't because they're trying to hurt people's feelings. It's because it's funny, or at least they thought it was funny.
Yeah, absolutely. Right? And it's just, it's more relaxed. It's more chaotic. It's less professional, but
yes.
But I don't know. It's just fun. I like the community, and there is a community. It's less.
Oh yeah.
Comedians they talk about being competitive, but really, I think 99% of the time, if someone pops off, they're just happy for them.
Yeah.
There's a camaraderie.
Yeah, I think it is. I think it is competitive. I do think it is competitive.
I think maybe that's just who I'm hanging out with.
Well, I think it is competitive, but there's no advantage to thinking of it that way.
No.
I think like it is competitive, but there's no. I don't think that you should go through it thinking about it that way.
And
like
comparing yourself to other comics is such a slippery slope.
Yeah, it's like comparing yourself to people at the gym. Like this is an individual kind. Like we can do it as a team. Like you can get your people. Like you're finding with Danton, right? Like you need to. I think it's very hard to do alone. I think you need to find your team and to try to make things happen.
Yeah.
But yeah, it doesn't have to be like.
It doesn't have to be mean spirited.
No.
Or jealousy. And you see jealousy, I guess. But I don't know. Why wouldn't you be happy for your colleague? Like.
Yeah.
And your friend.
I mean, I think there's something that most people would say feels unjust about somebody who you feel doesn't work very hard getting opportunities. I think
you run into that kind of thing.
I mean, it definitely happens, but again, it serves no benefit dwelling on it.
It's not going to help you succeed.
No,
it's not.
No, it's right. Like I think you maybe need to like in therapy, right? Acknowledge the feeling and then let it go,
and then just move on. Yeah, totally. So I agree with that.
Mickey, it has been great having you.
I know. I just chatting your ear off.
The time flew by, but it always does. It's been great. But I've been dying to have you on. We finally made it happen.
I'm sorry to hunt me down.
No, that's okay. I'm sorry if you felt like I
did. I wanted to do the podcast. I've been very busy, and I'm not amazing at scheduling. And I've been so busy, I've been overwhelmed. But I always remind myself, if I wasn't this busy, I'd be so depressed about it. So you can't have your cake and eat it too. But I am not always great at scheduling.
But yeah, again, like just so glad to have you. And yeah, you're just such a just another example of like a comic with a faith background. It's just
there's a lot of them.
Well, yeah, they're coming out of the woodwork and the well, I had a comic that I had on before saying like, I don't even talk about this in therapy.
Wow. Yeah, you're getting into it.
Yeah, and
wow.
But it's cool and
something about the chairs. I think.
You know, everybody. They're Derek Kalala said they're disarming.
They are disarming,
right?
You're like, I don't know, something about bouncing gently is.
Yeah, it's
yeah. Takes your guard down. I don't know.
That's good. Well, thanks for coming.
Yeah,
thanks for watching. And
we'll
see you next time.
Absolutely. Bye-bye. That was fun, Jay.